I mean, it's important that people understand they can be bailed in, but you don't want a huge run on the institution. But they're going to be.
A banking collapse is coming, and we are going to be kept in the dark. Yankee Stacking is sponsored by sdbullion.com. Hey everyone, thanks so much for watching Yankee Stacking. I first heard about this video from Lynette Zhang and her channel. It has been making the circuit all over the place. People are talking about a meeting of the FDIC back in November, and some of them are kind of seeing it as very nefarious, very cloak and dagger. In fact, some YouTube channels are calling it leaked video. Well, no, it's not leaked video. I'm going to get into all that. But this is really an interesting, I think, inside view into the mindset of our bankers. I used to work at a bank in a prior job, and I got an earful of what it meant to have confidence in our banking system, how quickly that could be lost, how quickly ATMs could be emptied, a panic, a run. I learned so much. And, what I saw in this video brings back some memories for me. So let me give you some context. This is the FDIC Systemic Resolution Advisory Committee meeting back again in November the 9th. By the way, the FDIC is the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. That is the entity that insures bank deposits all around the country. All right. So, first of all, this was a public forum. All right. It was streamed. It's recorded. Nothing was leaked. You can go right on their site, click the link, and watch all 3 hours of their meeting if you want. I'll include the link in the description below. And, the agenda was really just to help, I guess, improve transparency and communications to the public in the event of a bank failure. A bank failure, by the way, that could become systemic, just like we witnessed back during the financial crisis of 2008, where one bank failure leads to the next, to the next. It's like a bunch of dominoes, right? So anyway, this was a brainstorming session. And I want to play some clips and just give you my reaction and thoughts on it.
People need to know, but I don't think you have much hope of reaching a public that doesn't have a professional need to know.
I completely agree with that. I almost think you'd scare the public if you put this out. Like, why are they telling me this? Should I be concerned about my bank? Like, my insurance company doesn't tell me what they're doing with my assets. They just assume they're going to pay my claim, right? I think you've got to think of the unintended consequences of taking a public that has more full faith and confidence in the banking system than maybe people in this room do. That we want them to have full faith and confidence in the banking system. They know the FDIC insurance is there. They know it works. They put their money in. They're going to get their money out. So there's a select crowd of people that are in the institutional side. And if they want to understand this, they're going to find a way to understand this. There's a bunch of law firms represented in this room. There's a bunch of people that charge them by the hour a lot of money to explain this all to them. And it's fine. I don't have a problem with that. And they all have huge staffs. But I would be careful about the unintended consequences of starting to blast too much of this out in the general public.
They're discussing the lack of interest in the general populace over what they're talking about, over, bank failures and bank bail-ins. They're talking about the danger of blasting out information in case there is a banking crisis. And they're also talking about, the fact that only a select crowd cares and can figure this all out if they take their time and research it. They speak of a professional need to know. Okay, guys, you need to know. You need to be concerned about your bank, especially an investment bank. Frankly, you should be curious about your insurance company too. It's kind of funny that he uses that as an example. They fail too. Now, the FDIC insurance, while nice and something that we think was really cool to have, has created a moral hazard by creating apathy about banking practices, what banks do behind the scenes. The attitude is, whatever. I really don't care how risky they are with my deposits. As long as I'm insured, I just care about the banking app on my phone or the number of ATMs my bank has, the deposit rates, the fees, whatever. They don't care about looking behind the curtain. They don't care if there's some derivative scheme going on. They're out of control, gambling their deposits. They don't care. And that is the moral hazard. It's crazy. We should care about our banks and credit unions. He talks about the deposit insurance, how important it is. And you need to understand this. There is less than is needed in the Deposit Insurance Fund, the DIF, which backs people's accounts. For every $1 deposited, roughly 1.3 cents of insurance protects it. A little over a penny backing every dollar in all our banks. Let that sink in. Do you get the risk? A cascading failure could not be covered. There's not enough money. And I love the chuckle.
That has more full faith and confidence in the banking system than maybe people in this room do.
They think people don't care and they don't need to know. They just don't want to panic.
There are some market tests of whether you're being heard. And I think about TLAC. So TLAC should respond to good and bad news about the institutions. And it's really important.
So what is TLAC he mentions there? It's total loss absorbing capacity. It's a standard intended to ensure that the global systemically important banks, which are also called GSIBs, they love these acronyms, important banks have enough equity and bail-in debt to pass losses onto the investor. So they want to know, this TLAC is, do they have enough to handle a crisis without the government having to step in?
I mean, it's important that people understand they can be bailed in, but you don't want a huge run on the institution. But they're going to be.
Whoa. What? Now, he's not saying that they know that there's a run on the bank imminent. That's not what's being said here. But what they're saying is it is going to happen. All right. They know eventually the next time we have a crisis, most likely, there's going to be a bank bail-in and a run on the banks. And that's a bad thing.
And it could be an early warning signal to the FDIC and the primary regulators when these things happen. And there may be some other prices. This is similar to what Jay was saying in the market, that you can tell whether people understand who's going to be protected, who isn't going to be protected.
The whole idea of a bank bail-in, I don't know if you know what that is, but you do need to understand that the last time we had a crisis, a banking crisis, there was a bank bailout. Basically paid the big banks the money that they were losing to keep them from failing. They were too big to fail. A bank bail-in, is when that doesn't happen. The institutions take the funds from the depositors. And you need to know this. Once a customer has deposited his or her money, the paper, into a bank, they no longer own that asset, not directly. He or she instead has a claim on that asset, which is backed by the general pool of assets within the institution. So when you put your money in, it becomes an asset of the bank and you have a claim to that asset, but you are not first in line if there is a collapse. In a bank bail-in, there will be those who are protected and those who will not be protected. And just to add this, with central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, who those people are who are not protected could be far more than just, how much of a balance they have in the bank. It could easily be one day, those with deficient social credit scores, the wrong demographics, the wrong economic status, incorrect racial or gender status. There's a whole host of factors that will one day, I'm afraid, indicate who wins and who loses during a crisis, during a reset.
It's hard to get a lot of demand for transparency right now in this sort of period of peacetime, but that is going to flip, and it's going to flip probably even faster than we saw in 2008, where the need for communications really quickly in the social media world to avoid disinformation, to have some holding patterns for things like, I remember in the early days of bail-in, people saying they're coming for my deposits, right? So just holding communications that you can pull out that are helpful to deal with disinformation, some very simple things, and how quickly you'll be able to deal with different constituencies. For example, as liabilities are further up and closer to harm's way, when are you going to be able to give them some comfort, if any? How do you deal with foreign operations? How do you communicate to some of those different groups? I think ex-ante preparation for the speed of scaling up and the ability to get information out to avoid rumors taking over the narrative strikes me as probably the place that feels like it's got the most benefit.
Back in 2008, social media was not quite as developed and news traveled a little slower. All right. The concern that he's expressing here is how do we control the narrative? How do we, suppress information that does not support what the FDIC wants to get out, or the Federal Reserve, or the U.S. Presidential Administration, or whoever it is? So a narrative, a truth that we don't want out there, we're going to call disinformation. And of course, we've seen this a lot over the years, right? Labeling information as fake news or conspiracy theories. It's grown a lot over the past 15 years since the 2008 financial crisis. This is their greatest fear in the next crisis. They are going to keep us in the dark. They'll have their hands full with the speed of social media, but they will make sure, as much as they can, to only let you know what they want you to know. All right, so final thoughts, and also some specifics on what to do that I think is going to help you here. First, do remember, guys, this was an open roundtable discussion. It's public. They know some people will listen in. I'm not trying to over-sensationalize it, but understand this. If they're saying all this on the record, what are they discussing behind closed doors? All right, here are my suggestions for you. First thing, be the bank. I've said this now for almost 4 years. Be the bank, especially with, those of you watching that have some high net worth, okay? But for everyone, get your savings out of the public bank. Create a private bank. I have a Bank of Yankee, all right? Be the bank yourself. Divest. Get out. Only leave what you need to leave in your bank and credit union, by the way. Same thing. Only put what you have to put in there to pay your bills, right? There's not enough on reserve if it's a systemic failure. You don't own it when you deposit it. And very importantly, the requirements on bank deposits are super lax, and they are getting more lax every single year. So again, be the bank. That's the first thing, okay? I can't stress that enough. Number 2, build your wealth insurance outside the banksters cartel. And I primarily do that with this stuff right here, silver and gold. Big shout out to SD Bullion for these incredible rounds, 20 of them. They are beautiful. Oh yeah, I love these rounds. Get silver. All right, get silver. It's a great potential barter asset to have And of course, gold. I am working on my second Yankee cannon here with buffaloes. I just got one more buffalo. So this will bring it to a total of 9. I still have a ways to go, but hey, it's, well, almost halfway, right? So build your wealth insurance outside the banks. Get silver and gold. Number 3, prep. Prepare for what's coming. I have an entire playlist on prepping the Yankee way. Check that out. There's a whole bunch of stuff you should be getting ready for that has nothing to do with silver and gold. Food, water, supplies, a whole host of things. And the 4th thing I think you should do is educate yourself. They don't think you're watching. They don't think you're caring. And by far, the masses don't. They'll never watch that clip from the FDIC. You do. Okay, so you need to keep educating yourself. And then the last thing, the 5th thing, is share. Share this video if you would like to help people understand what is going on and what they need to do. But definitely share it with your friends, your family, help them understand, because there is a collapse coming. And we will be kept in the dark, but you can prepare for it. Well, I hope you enjoyed that video. Thanks so much for watching. And as always, I hope your day is A-OK.